Thousands of protesters returned to the streets of Tbilisi on Friday evening to protest against the government's decision to suspend accession talks with the European Union until the end of 2028. Demonstrators were seen shouting "traitors" and holding photographs of journalists who they say were beaten by police overnight. The previous night's protests saw police use pepper spray and water cannon against demonstrators, with the government saying 43 people were arrested. Earlier, more than 100 diplomats and civil servants in Georgia signed an open letter saying the government's decision does not align with Georgia's strategic interests. Defending his decision, Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze accused the EU of blackmail after EU legislators called for last month's parliamentary elections in Georgia to be rerun. They cited significant irregularities. Since 2012, Georgia has been governed by Georgian Dream, a party which critics say has tried to move the country away from the EU and closer to Russia. The party claimed victory in last month's election, but opposition MPs are boycotting the new parliament, alleging fraud, while the country's president, Salome Zurabishvili, has called the one-party parliament unconstitutional. On Thursday, the European Parliament backed a resolution describing the election as the latest stage in Georgia's worsening democratic crisis and saying that the ruling party was fully responsible. It expressed particular concern about reports of voter intimidation, vote buying and manipulation, and harassment of observers. The European Parliament also urged sanctions against Georgia's prime minister and other high-level officials, including the billionaire founder of the governing party Bidzina Ivanishvili. Following the resolution, Georgia's prime minister said his government had decided not to bring up the issue of joining the European Union on the agenda until the end of 2028. He said Georgia would still seek EU membership, but with dignity and on its own terms. Kobakidze also lashed out at European politicians for hurling a cascade of insults at the Georgian government. In response, thousands of pro-EU protesters demonstrated outside Georgian Dream offices in the cities of Tbilisi and Kutaisi. Protesters see the government's U-turn as a betrayal of a national aspiration. The goal of European integration is enshrined in Georgia's constitution. Police started dispersing the rally at 2 o'clock local time Friday, 22 o'clock GMT Thursday, using batons, tear gas, and water cannons after demonstrators barricaded some streets in Tbilisi. The protest lasted until 6 o'clock local time, but further demonstrations are expected later on Friday. Georgia's Interior Ministry said protesters resorted to provocations on many occasions, damaging infrastructure and badly injuring 32 police officers. The precise number of injured protesters is unknown, but a member of the opposition group Coalition for Change said one of its members, Nana Malashkia, had their nose broken. During the crackdown, we took shelter in a pharmacy, but the special forces stormed in after us. If it was not for the presence of the media, they might have beaten us to death, Georgi Butikashvili told the BBC. Footage on social media also showed a journalist from the opposition Formula TV station being severely beaten by the police. Other media representatives wearing clearly marked press labels were also targeted. On Friday, the EU's ambassador to Georgia called the government's suspension sad and heartbreaking. Paweł Herczynski said it contradicted the policy of previous governments and the wishes of the vast majority of the population. Public polling has shown more than 80% of Georgians see their country's future as being part of the European Union. Georgian Dream didn't win the elections. It staged a coup, 20-year-old Shota Sabashvili told AFP news agency. There is no legitimate parliament or government in Georgia. We will not let this self-proclaimed prime minister destroy our European future. Anna, a student, said Georgian Dream was going against Georgian people's will and want to drag us back to USSR. That will never happen because Georgian people will never let this happen, she told the Associated Press. Georgia has had official EU candidate status since 2023. However, Brussels had already halted the accession process earlier this year over a Russia-style law targeting organizations accused of pursuing the interests of a foreign power. Kobakidze said Georgia would continue to implement the reforms required for accession and that it still planned to join by 2030, but added that it was crucial for the EU to respect our national interests and traditional values. Former Georgian President Georgi Margvelashvili told the BBC the country was at an unprecedented turning point. Kindly like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments section.